Hi everyone and welcome. This is Elena, and for today I'm back with another card video using you how to do some layered stamping on dark cardstock. So in the past we have stamped on white cardstock like those cards using multi-step stamps, but I will show you how to do that on darker cardstock and still have a great effect. Like still have those colors pop instead of kind of blend in with that dark cardstock. So I have my supplies here. I'm using kitchen sink stamps. I'm using the Zinnia. It's like five step stamp, which is amazing. It gives you very good depth of the image when it's finished, and it looks so realistic. So what I'm doing first, I'm stamping the first layer using Hero Art Unicorn ink. That's a white pigment ink. You can use any other ink that pigment ink that you like. So I'm just doing a couple of those, and then because I'm making few cards at once, so I'm doing on white cardstock and on KRAFT. So I have those two. Those will be on the darker cardstock, and then I'll do another two on white cardstock. So I just want to dry to heat set this ink to be completely dry, and it doesn't like leave white marks on your fingers when you touch it. So next I'm putting it back in my MISTI, and now I'm gonna start stamping the coloring. So color inking. So I'm using Altenew, the packs of 4 ink cubes. So this is like the pink. I'll have listed everything in the description so you know exactly which packs I used. So I'm starting with the lightest ink. And now it's on the white cardstock. I just go 2 by 2 first with the pink, and then I'll use some orange. So I'm going now with the orange, and I forgot to mention when I stamp on the white pigment ink on top on the KRAFT cardstock, I clean my stamp before stamping onto the white cardstock, so I don't contaminate my ink cubes with that white ink if there were any residue left. So here I'm going with the orange. This is the lightest orange from the 4 packs. And next I'm like heat setting that so that ink dries, especially the one that's on top of the pigment ink. So if it appears splotched at first, don't worry, when you dry it, it will even out. So I applied from that the embossing buddy or embossing tool that has the anti-static powder. So in case there's still something sticky to not make it sticky. So next I'm going with the darker orange ink. And I decided to go twice to get like that deeper orange. So I'm repeating the same process as well on the KRAFT cardstock. Actually this is not, well, it's KRAFT, but it's called Desert Sand. It's from Neenah. So I did the same with the KRAFT, and now I'm going with the pink one and onto the KRAFT cardstock. So you see me here cleaning that stamp. I just rub it off first with wipe, then with my hand to make it dry, to make sure it's dry. But you can dry it anyway or clean it any way you prefer. So that's the pink one. So I'm gonna go again, heat set up everything, kind of dried up so it's not sticky and doesn't remove, especially the one that's stamped on the white cardstock, doesn't remove the color when you stamp with the next color. So next I'm using the third step, and I'm using almost the next to the darkest hue of the ink pads, the ink cubes. So here you will see first a condition actually with the Versamark ink, and then I wiped it off with my hand, and then I inked my stamp using the orange ink cube. So you can see here how the Zinnia is starting to get the depth and looks more realistic. So now I'm going with the pink one, and I'm repeating the same process again. So next is the one on KRAFT cardstock. So we're almost done here. I decided to do twice to have that darker color. So in the meantime, by magic of YouTube, I dried them all up using my heat gun. So next I'm going with the fourth step. So here I'm using the insert that came with the stamp set to line those up because it was like harder for me to see. So I'm just positioning that onto that transparency, and then we'll have the perfect positioned layer. So first I did it on the white cardstock, and now I'm doing on the KRAFT. I'm using the darkest of the 4 ink cubes that came in the pack. So I'm just doing it twice on the KRAFT cardstock. So I'm repeating exactly the same process onto the pink ones, the white, and now the KRAFT cardstock. So by magic of YouTube, everything is dry. I'm moving with the 5th step. So I'm repeating the process again with that transparency that came with the stamp set, so I can layer those, position those perfectly, because it's easier to see on that transparency. It's very dark, and you can position it first on top of your cardstock, then position the stamp. So next I'm using a gray ink pad. So this is like kind of one of the darker grays from the 4 ink cubes. I think it's the darkest one. So that like gives really nice depth to your stamped image. So for the orange zinnias, I'm using the brown. I think it's coffee or espresso. So to get that kind of those flowers really pop up. So next I'm creating a mask. I'm gonna mask everything to stamp the leaves, and I'll repeat the same process for the leaves. So I'm just cutting around and creating that mask. So I'm just adding it there. You will see that on top it doesn't match, but I'm stamping the leaves on the bottom, so it doesn't really we're not really concerned with the top. So I'm starting first with the KRAFT ones because I'll stamp with the pigment white, the Here Art Unicorn ink. And then I'll repeat the same process for creating for all of them. So I'm just gonna heat set those so it's nice and dry, and then I'll stamp with the green inks. So for the leaves we have only 3 steps, so it will go a little bit faster. So I'm just applying a little bit of that embossing powder, not embossing powder, but embossing anti-static powder. So I'm first stamping with the lightest ink. I'm using that mask to mask it off. So I'm gonna clean my stamp because I had a little bit white pigment ink left on it, so I don't contaminate my ink pad. So now I'm moving on to the images stamped on white cardstock, and I'm repeating the same process. So next I'm using different mask because that one kind of got saturated with the ink, and the ink started bleeding onto the other side and onto my images. So next I'm just using a scrap of that sticky note. I'm using the sticky notes that are sticky all over, so that you have more use of the area of that sticky note, not just the top. So I realize here that I can just use those rounded corners or even the straight edges to mask it off. So I'm not bothering with the cut images because it's easier, and I have I can use more sides of that sticky note instead of cutting more masks. So I'm going with the 3rd layer now. That's the darkest green. So I have 1 more left here. So, well, I guess I have 2 more left. Now it's 1. So next I'm going with the 2nd leaf. I'm gonna stamp first with unicorn ink, and then on the KRAFT cardstock, and then I'll heat set those and repeat the same process stamping with the green inks. So you may be bored here. If you are, just feel free to skip to the end. We have about 4 minutes left, so by magic of YouTube we have all stamped there. And then I'm just trimming it down to 3 1/4 by 5 inches, all of the panels. So I'm just chopping 1/4 of an inch of all sides. So there we have all those. Next I have my die cuts. I have 2 layers of each because I'll layer them up together. So these were already layered together to give a little bit more dimension and kind of for them to pop up. So here are 2 die cuts together. I die cut them on the back of my cardstock. Before I die cut, I added some sticky adhesive and then just adhered them on top of each other and then onto my card. So I'm positioning that there. I like really how like the black ones look. It really pops up. And then the white onto the KRAFT cardstock, it really makes it pop up. So there we have those. And then I'll add just a little dot on top of the eye. So we're almost done here. So now I'm like just burnishing with my bone folder on top so that adheres nicely. The front die cuts are from Simon Says Stamp, and the hello, it's from Mama Elephant. I'll have those all the supplies posted on the description of my YouTube video as well in my blog post. So I'm now just creating my card bases, black and KRAFT or dessert sand, and then I'll use some fun foam on back of my panels to adhere them on back of my cards. So I'm just trimming those off because they're a little bit larger. And now I'm adhering everything together. So I'm using fast fuse adhesive because it's very strong adhesive and it holds that fun foam very nicely. So I'm just lining those up here, and I have 2 more left here, so I'm just trimming, as I said, the fun foam. I have pre-cut pieces of 5 1/4 by 4 inches. So because my layers are a little bit smaller, I just trimmed the 2 edges and we're good to go. So that's done here. So here are my cards, and just for finishing touch, I'm adding some Nouveau drops. I'm adding the black ones onto the white base cards. Well, they're base black note cards, but the top layer is white. I apologize if you can hear my kids. And then on the KRAFT ones, I'm adding some white Nouveau drops. So those are almost done, and I'll just let them dry on the side, and then my cards are ready to go. So here's a look of all 4 cards. So don't forget to subscribe to my blog and my YouTube channel, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon in another video. Bye!